Let's get it going. Hey everyone, and if you're from Chechnya, Assalamu alaikum, and welcome to Understandable English. This is a more informal series that I'm starting since I recently posted a video about Armenia and my trip there. And well, that was fun because I was actually in Armenia. It's currently snowing and winter time, which means that I am at work. I'm a teacher, I work in a school, and so mostly I only travel in the summertime. So I thought I would start a more informal series where I just sit and talk to the camera a little bit about my travels around the world and what I've seen, all in English and all using new words and terms so you can learn both about the world and about a new country or new place as you are learning English. Today I really want to tell you about Chechnya. I was there in 2021, so a while ago, but I will be happy to tell you a bit about it because I think this is a part of the world that not a lot of people fully understand or know a lot about. I think that with Chechnya, a lot of times the first thing that comes to our heads are some of the stereotypes we know about this place, or maybe we don't know about this place. Stereotypes, of course, are things that we think we know about a country because everyone says that's how everyone is. For example, Americans sometimes are considered to be loud. There's a stereotype about Americans. Not all Americans are loud. French people are sometimes considered to be rude. Not all French people are rude. And perhaps Russians are considered to drink too much vodka or play too much balalaika. But of course, not all Russians play the balalaika and drink vodka. So here, I think it's good to talk about the stereotypes of Chechnya because there are many of them and not many of them are super positive. And so, at least for me, having spent time in Russia before going to Chechnya, I heard a lot about how Chechens are scary people, how they are very cruel, they are violent, they are not kind, you have to be very careful, or maybe I just shouldn't go Chechnya, I will not survive. But again, these are a lot of stereotypes. There may be some people who are scary and cruel, but as I can tell you, after my trip, the majority of people that I met were very kind and almost overly kind. I think that sometimes the places where the stereotypes are the most negative are the places where the people are the kindest. I can tell you about that right away. The second I entered Chechnya, I came hitchhiking, which means that I sat on the side of the road with my thumb up and I was looking for a ride. Some people find this to be a scary way of traveling. I find it a way to really interact with the local people who are living and existing in this area. So the first person who picked me up was actually a government vehicle. It was a marshrutka, so I guess you could call it hitchhiking, but they let me ride for free because they knew I was a traveler. And I sat down next to an old man who was the kindest person I'd ever met. He shared his food, he shared his water, he shared everything with me. He talked to me about his people, his homeland, Chechnya. He told me about just about everything he could. He told me about how he dreamed to travel the world, but he never got the chance. And he's happy that I, a young man, was having the chance to live his dreams. And it was a wonderful conversation. It lasted about an hour before we finally got to Grozny, the capital of Chechnya. Grozny is a very beautiful city. It's relatively new after the war, which I'm not going to talk a lot about the war because I'm not a historian. I really don't know a lot about it, enough to actually tell you information about it. But the city was rebuilt after the wars, and this makes it very modern, it makes it very beautiful, and it's quite a nice city to walk around, quite enjoyable. The first things that made me realize that I was no longer at home were the large portraits that were hanging around. For me, as an American, that's not a common thing to see, portraits of people hanging all over the city. I saw a lot of Kadyrov and I saw a lot of Putin. But it was interesting to see that because for me, that was something that I've only ever seen in pictures or in videos or in history books. And so to see that in person was definitely an interesting surprise. But I think that the most interesting and the most unique story that I had from my time in Chechnya was when I happened to walk into a bookstore. There's a bookstore in the center of Grozny called Gian Books. I think that's how you say it correctly. And I walked in there because for me, I love bookstores. I love learning and I also love languages. And so when I go to a new place with a new language, I love to look for a book in that language and perhaps to purchase it as a souvenir because I think it's the most beautiful thing to have, is a collection of books in other languages. But I walked in, started to look. It was very small. It was a single room, and it was run by a very close-knit or very close group of people. And they immediately noticed I was a foreigner. They noticed that I was exploring. So they gave me coffee, they gave me a snack to eat, and they started to talk to me about the bookstore, about the city, about Chechnya, and everything they could tell me all about. And we ended up spending a couple hours there, and they invited me to come back at any time. They invited me to go for a walk, and they were going to show me the city. All of this just out of the kindness of their heart. I didn't have to buy anything from the bookstore or anything at all. They were just interested in sharing what they knew about their home with a foreigner and a person coming through, and they wanted to make sure I was having a kind experience. And this was wonderful because it gave me a sense of friendship, perhaps, or a sense of closeness with the people, and not just me being a tourist who came to look at some buildings and leaving. And so I really enjoyed that about Chechnya. What else can I say? These wonderful people in the bookstore, they also saved me at one point, because I had left some of my things at a hostel where I was staying in the city, and I had left the city to go visit some of the mountains in the south. And this was supposed to be just for a day, but something had gone wrong with the hostel. It might have been a miscommunication, but I needed to move all of my things and leave within an hour. And I was 3 hours away by car, and even more by hitchhiking. And so I was having a big problem. And the only thing I could think to do was to call these wonderful people that had helped me so much. And they ended up taking time out of their day to go to the hostel. They took all of my things. They put me into a different hotel. They took care of all my things. And when I came back to the city, they were ready to give me the key to the hotel and let me stay there instead. And it was a wonderful experience, because in most places, a tourist would be out of luck. We would be unable to do anything, and we would have a big problem. But these people that I'd met just a few days before, maybe I think it was even just one day before, had decided that they're going to take time out of their day to help someone and to make them feel welcome in a place that they had just arrived to. So I thought that was a very beautiful thing to experience with these people I just met in the bookstore. What else can I say about them? They introduced me to the cities at night. I think that some of the most important pieces of architecture in Chechnya at this point are the mosques. Some of them are built in a huge, beautiful way that is just stunning to see, some of the biggest ones in Europe. Some of them are built in a modern, high-tech style with these LED lights that look good in the day, but look even better at night. And so they arranged for me on a tour. It was like a test tour. They were introducing a new tour to the city, and through the connections of these people at the bookstore, they let me get onto a test tour bus, and I was able to have almost a private tour throughout these nighttime mosques and to see some of the most amazing things, beautiful things at night without having to pay a penny. They just wanted to be kind and let me come along. And so it was another unforgettable experience with these people. They showed me a lot about their faith and about their religion, things that I had never known growing up as an American in a place where there aren't as many Muslims as there are Christians. And so there's a lot of things I did not know, and they were happy to share in a very intrusive way. They were just happy to have me watch and to observe, and they did not force anything on me or to change my mind in any sort of way. It was a very open and kind and welcoming way to show me their cultures and their religion and so on. Of course, when you go to a new place and you're traveling, a lot of people want to talk about the food. And I also love food. And I think there were two things that stood out for me. The first one was there was one street, I think it was called Southern Street, and it had only barbecue. There was just meat and meat and meat, one after the other, all on the fire grill being grilled, and it smelled so good. I went there for a night, and it was a very strange and very delicious experience. But also, my friends from the bookstore, they also introduced me to a more of a Chechen food, and there were these, I guess I could call them noodles, but they were like dough kind of fried into a circle in a cylinder with some sausages and some sauce. And I don't remember what this was called. They told me, but I had forgotten already. So if any Chechens are watching, they can tell me in the comments what these things are. I will be happy to know, because I think about these things every day and they are so delicious. And so I'll put the picture up here for you guys to look. But these were so good, and they treated me to these things as well. And I was so happy to have it. And now I think about it, like I said, every day. They were so delicious. So they're one of those foods that just makes me so happy inside. I also spent some time in the south, which is where more of the nature and the mountains are. And these mountains aren't as huge as you would think of, like the Alps, or as you go further closer to Georgia, where there's Elbrus and things like that. But these are a bit smaller. In the winter, of course, there's snow. In the summer, there's not as much. But they were beautiful. There were lakes and these old villages, and still modern villages that live in these old places. And it was wonderful to go between the villages, to talk with the local people. This is why I love hitchhiking so much, because you get dropped in places that you would probably never go if you had your own car, or if you were taking a tour, you would never be in these places. And for that reason, these people also don't often get to see tourists. And so it was fun to interact with these local people that don't often talk to tourists, and they were able to share their stories and tell me about their lives as well. So I want to wrap up my talk here a little bit about Chechnya and my trip there with just reiterating, or to emphasizing the fact that these people, even though their stereotypes may seem to be very cold and very violent or very angry, dangerous, they were very kind. I did not feel unsafe ever when I was there, and I felt that it was a wonderful trip that I had, a wonderful, I think it was 5 or 6 days in Chechnya. I want to say hello to the Chechens if you're watching. Hello. If you know a Chechen, say hello for me. And yeah, so if you enjoyed what you were watching, if you learned something new, don't forget to like and subscribe. I am going to continue this travel series about things that I have seen around the world as I've traveled in English, hopefully allowing you to learn more about the world and about English at the same time. If you have ever been to Chechnya, tell me about it in the comments. I'd love to hear your experience. If you want to go there, tell me about it as well. If you are Chechen, then tell me about it in the comments. Hopefully I got everything right, but if I didn't, please, please, please tell me in the comments below, and I'll be happy to fix it. And so I will also get it right the next time. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and toodles.